is 2009. And the CR12 that you have submitted to this House is for this year. Would you tell this House who was the initial director of this company? If that was so, was there any change of directorship of this company? Secondly, the one on trial is the deputy president of this country and not his two sons. You have linked Crystal to be a proxy of the deputy president through his two sons. Would you tell this House if you have any evidence that shows that money was wired from Crystal Limited to the account or to any company linked to the deputy president?
Senator Shakil Abdallah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to Honorable Mutuse. If Judge Maina had filed any complaints regarding the being harassed by the deputy president. Thank you.
Senator Miraj Abdullah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question goes to Mr. Mutuse, sorry. Is it your opinion that the DP was talking about enforcing the Kenya Kwanza coalition agreement when he was speaking about the shareholding issue? And the second one goes to the DP side, that we were reminded here of the oath we took when we assumed this institution. Is it in your place to say that your client has breached his own oath even before we make a conclusion? Because we were made to read the third schedule here on justice and directly and indirectly revealing such matters, and the oath of secrecy that His Excellency the Deputy President took. In his utterances, he used to speak about not the Mlima being touched. So in the essence of national unity, don't you think that your client, the DP, or you clarify for us that he has already breached his own oath even before we make a decision as the jury of this House? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My first question goes to Mutuse and a comment. Honorable Speaker, I want to find out from Mheshimiwa, out of the 22 companies that you've alleged associated with the Deputy President, how many are really of interest to this particular impeachment? Yesterday you talked about the one in Rea Vivingo, and we saw that 10,000 of the shares, the total shares, are owned by the estate of the late Governor Gachagua. And then a comment, Honorable Speaker, is the clips that were played yesterday on shareholding. I think I want to ask the legal counsel for the Deputy President. It looks like we didn't stop campaigns after election. It looked like we continued to provocate campaigns because we expected the Deputy President, immediately after campaigns, we stop about this thing of shareholding because...
Senator Maanzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this would have gone to Governor Orengo, but since he said the clients, the National Assembly had given him instructions, I would like them to tell me what is the relevance of the verse they read yesterday. And also, on the floor of the National Assembly, they read a verse that when bad leaders rule, badness increases in a country. And when good leaders rule, goodness increases in a country. Finally, what is the maximum number of companies can an individual participate in under the law? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mutuse, you may now proceed to respond. You have exactly 10 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, for this opportunity. I have, from the questions that have come across, there are many that relate to the companies, and with your indulgence, allow me to start from there. Senator Cheriot, Senator from Marakwet, and several senators have asked why I listed 21 companies and why I said I did not have an interest in some of them. Number one, I think it is important for us to understand the context within which we are operating. I am not an investigator. And the law under Article 94, Article 95, does not make a member of Parliament, the National Assembly or Senate, an investigator. What I'm required to do is to establish a prima facie case, to establish that what is happening is outside the requirements of the law. And having been in this country and with a lot of enthusiasm in matters governance, I also know that this Senate has an opportunity to consider the impeachment of the late Nderito Gachagua. And in that impeachment, because this is a house of record, you will realize that most of the companies that I've listed were also complained about by the County Assembly of Nyeri during the impeachment of Governor Nderito Gachagua. And the complaint was specifically that there was a brother to the late governor, and the brother is one Rigathi Gachagua, who was doing all the business in Nyeri County. And from that basis, therefore, I needed to expound to find out what these companies that had been complained about during that impeachment, what these companies that had been complained about in the Esther Minor decision in terms of money laundering had to do with the Deputy President and the things that I'm alleging against him. And it is on that basis that I listed these companies. I want to invite members of this Senate to also know that in doing this, it is not just about the direct evidence. It is also about the circumstantial evidence. It's also about the circumstances that led to where we are. That there are companies that were complained about doing business in Nyeri County. It came to this Senate. That the same companies were complained about doing money laundering, and a decision of the High Court by Justice Maina has been tabled before you. And today, we are complaining that the same companies are helping to do corruption and money laundering. And that's the reason why we bring those companies. Please notice that in an impeachment, because I've been asked about threshold, and I know you know about it, my work here is not to prove criminal liability. It is not to prove beyond reasonable doubt. My work here is not to prove civil liability, but to show political responsibility. And I have been able to do that. In terms of Vipingo Ridge, the question I want to invite honorable senators, and I request that you listen to me. I was told yesterday that Vipingo Ridge, the two sons of His Excellency the Deputy President, are mere directors, and that the shares are owned by the estate of the late Nderito Gachagua. But then you ask yourself, all of you here, you have children, why would my brother's children own my estate and not my children? Why would my brother's children be the ones who are directors in my estate and not my own children? If you die today, will your children be the ones being directors of your properties, or it is the children of your brothers? Don't you see this is suspicious? It is obviously suspicious. Number two, in law, and I want to challenge anyone. An estate, what is an estate? An estate is the totality of your belongings. So, can an estate own an estate? It is administrators. We would have expected that the executors in the estate who are named in the will are the ones who would have been named in the shareholding. And we know all these trick games that are being played around to hide ownership. And that, because I talked about circumstantial evidence, that is to be compared with the affidavit of Mr. Jomo in terms of how Jomo was approached to be proxy in buying the property, and how Jahenda, the question that has been asked, is the one operating the accounts. And we have been able to show that the same Jahenda, the same lady who works at the DP's office, is the same person who is the manager at the hotel and is the one who is operating the accounts. So I invite you to see the web of secrecy, the web of conspiracy. It is a web. And this is why I said these are white-collar crimes. They are done by intelligent people. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to get direct evidence, but in the totality of the circumstances, it points to money laundering and corruption. Let me now go to Senator for Nandi, my good friend, Senator Cherangei. Thank you very much for the Bible verse. I'll keep on reading it, and every time I read it, I will remember you. 5.2 billion wealth. Did I ask for the wealth declaration? I have said here I was not in an investigation journey. I was doing my role under the law to establish a prima facie case. And the last I know, in terms of public declaration, because this has also been asked, the Deputy President, during the presidential debate, as a candidate for election, did declare that it was worth 800 million shillings. I have listed companies, I have listed suspicious transactions that lead me to the conclusion that it is now worth 5.2 billion shillings. The law on unexplained assets, because this is important, the law on unexplained assets is such that you are asked, you own this, please tell us how you acquired it. Because as far as we know, your legitimate income cannot support this. That is what I have done. I have listed properties that I have laid evidence that they are either directly or indirectly owned by the Deputy President. It is upon him, and this law is established, it is upon him to tell us where he got money to buy those properties, because in as far as we know, his legitimate sources of income do not support that income. Senator Kinyua, thank you for the question. Treetop Hotel is owned by KWS and therefore is a public institution. The expectation at law is that it should be, if it was to be leased, that needed to follow the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, and therefore would have expected an advertisement, a competitive process, to leading to its acquisition and leasing to a private person. There is no evidence that that was done, and that's why I allege and I approved that the Deputy President used his office to influence the acquiring of Treetops Hotel, abuse of office. Whether we have had opportunity to discuss with the children and the widows of the late Nerito Gachagua, please allow me not to comment on that, because there are requests also, as I said yesterday, that we keep certain matters that come to our knowledge during this process in secrecy. Senator for Samburu, the necessity of including the companies, I have said. The children of the children of Rigathi Gachagua, they are in, I think one is in his early 30s, the other one is in his late 20s. Whether there is an age limit for somebody to obtain a loan of 700 million, no, there isn't an age limit, but the guess, yours and mine, how many children of that age in the Republic of Kenya would have security enough to secure a loan of 600 million? Because to secure a loan of 600 million, the bankers tell us that you have to place property probably that is 10 times more in value than that. When did they acquire that property? Number two, it is not our evidence, and this is important for me to clarify, that Abadea's Safari Lodges was acquired through a loan. it is an explanation that we have discounted. He said that they obtained a loan of 600 million, but the only document that was produced is an offer letter for the loan. There is no evidence to show that the loan was granted. There is no evidence to show any charge on that loan. And therefore, it is our contention that that explanation is not conclusive. That explanation cannot suffice. And therefore, it goes back to the Deputy President to tell us where he got the 535 million, where he got the 143 million to buy those properties, because the loan is not substantiated. Senator, in terms of Olive Gardens, we have been able to show Julian Jahenda, the one managing the hotel and the one working in the DP's office, is one and the same person. Jomo, we bought the hotel on a promise that the Deputy President, the truth of the matter is that
Conclude, Honorable Mutuse.
Jomo bought the hotel
2 minutes to conclude.
as a proxy for the Deputy President. What problem do we have with refurbishment at the office of the Deputy President? We do not have a problem with the tender, we have a problem with the priorities. Kenyans today, and the Deputy President is talking about it, are crying about services. Is it a priority to renovate the office, or is it a priority to give water to the people of Kibwezi? Vipingo Beach, I have explained whether you would bequeath your wealth to your children or to the children of your brother. Senator of Meru, the property, there is an admission from the response by the DP that he actually owns a property in Meru, so I do not need to belabor that point. He has already admitted he owns a property in Meru, but he says he got a loan from one of the local circles. He has not produced evidence for that loan. And therefore, to my contention, that issue is already proved. In terms of the NIS address in Mombasa and why we complain about it, imagine, and I do not want to imagine that, somebody was a member of Al-Shabaab, and the Deputy President, none other than the Deputy President, stood up and said our intelligence system has collapsed. Wouldn't that be the right time to strike? That is the risk that the country faced by that particular announcement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let us have the second witness. As the counsel for the DP responds or clarifies on the issues raised towards them, may we have the second witness available for purposes of clarifications. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin with the tortured question of the estate of the late Nderito Gachagua. It is, I think, a shame that will stick on Honorable Mutuse for the rest of his years on earth.
Counsel, the Deputy President.
Yes.
There are very few clarifications that were directed towards you.
Yes.
So I'll give you 5 minutes. You're not responding to the clarifications by Mutuse. You're responding to the clarification as sought.
Those are the ones I am. And, Honorable Speaker, there are quite a number of clarifications, especially on this estate issue, which please allow me 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Senate. Now, I began my cross-examination.
Sorry, Senator Kavindu, just have a seat. I couldn't take that.
Yes.
What is the source of this?
I asked him yesterday. He answered the question.
Yes, Counsel for DP, what exactly did you say?
I just wanted to say that the National Assembly was provided with an affidavit by the executors of the will of the late Nderito Gachagua. It is before you. It is volume number 4 of Nderito Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua. It should be before you. In that affidavit, the two executors state in comprehensive detail everything concerning that particular estate. The estate property was divided in accordance with the will. The probate matter commenced And when
Who sought that clarification?
I was asked, the question was asked here, I think, by Senator Dulo
Counsel for DP, do not respond to what Honorable Mutuse said.
Senator
Pick
Dulo.
a senator's issue and respond to it.
That's what I'm responding to.
Exactly. So whose clarification are you?
Senator Dulo asked of disinheriting the widows, if Hunter could confirm that. I believe she did. That's what I'm answering, yes. And so the will, as I'm explaining, does not disinherit the children or the widows or anybody else. It is merely because in the motion brought before you, there were properties listed in the motion that were part of the estate. That is the only reason this estate has become the subject of proceedings before the Senate and the National Assembly. So when you look at the will, as I've said, between pages 11 and 12, at page 13, if you have the document before you, this is volume number 4, there is a long list of how it was divided. And I won't go through it, you'll be able to read it yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, you will see an affidavit by the executors, except the Deputy President who did not sign this affidavit. These are the 2 remaining executors who have signed it, explaining between pages 4 and page 9 everything that was done in accordance with the law and in accordance with the law of succession, and that no one's property was taken away.
Senator Dulo, you know our rules. Proceed, Counsel. Proceed.
Yes. Now, I've been asked some questions about the issue of the Moranga video and about the shareholder agreements and whether 2 wrongs make a right. Our position is the opposite. Our position was that the address by the President in Moranga was in fact in confirmation of the agreements. The President was merely saying that they are implementing the agreements they agreed upon, and it was incumbent upon his deputy to assist his President in confirming that they were implementing the agreements. That is the purpose of the video. That is the purpose of those agreements. It is not to say kufa makanga, kufa dereva. I think Senator Beth asked that question. It is to say okoeni makanga na muokoe dereva. That is what we're asking you to do this morning. Senator, I believe Eddie, Senator Eddie Owiti, my good friend, has asked about the interrelation between Articles 91 and Article 232 and how those interact with the agreements. If I would call your attention, Honorable Senators, to the contracts themselves again. I don't know whether you have them. The contracts are in volume 3, and I'm referring you to page 429. At page 429, this is what the agreement said, and I'm reading, this is the primary agreement that was signed between UDA and between Ford Kenya and ANC. This is what it said. Further terms, parameters, and details of the sharing of positions of responsibility in the national government pursuant to this article shall be contained in a separate schedule to this agreement, which schedule shall be negotiated and executed before the date of the general elections scheduled on 9th August. So there were subsequent agreements executed on how these shares were to be divided and to be implemented. That is issue number 1. But issue number 2, the parties gave themselves some room, and you'll see this at page 430. This is Article 22, Subarticle G. Notwithstanding the content of this article, the founding member parties hereby commit to make any adjustments that may be necessary to accommodate the development priorities of other parts of the country to ensure equitable distribution of Kenya's national resources and wealth for the benefit of every citizen and every part of Kenya. When the demonstrating to you with videos where both he and his boss, the president, went, voting did not matter to how they were going to implement the development agenda. I think I was asked whether there are any contracts or agreements that were signed on behalf of Mount Kenya. I did not see any. We don't have any thus far. There were several parties from Mount Kenya, but they did not negotiate anything. Then an important question. The deputy president did not say the government is a company. When you read the statements, he was making an example. It's like a company. It was a tool to explain a document. That's all he was doing. I'm pressed for time here. Yes, Senator Cheriot asked a question about two wrongs making a right, and whether the current DP is conceding that because he did what the former DP did, that then he is guilty. Again, far from the truth. We are asserting, when you read the documents, the documents at page 412, this is the article Deputy President spoke in Moyale.
20 minutes, clerk. 20 minutes, clerk.
Mr. Speaker, 3 minutes will be enough for me.
No, we need to know how much time you have. You have 2 minutes.
Okay.